Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Devils United. Back again with another preview. FA Cup final against Manchester City. And we've got Jason. How are you doing today?
Not too bad, thank you, Maisy. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And it's good to have you back on again. I know we've
Thank
done the
you.
preview together last time out, so I'm looking forward to this one especially.
It should be a good game, really good game of football is what I'm hoping for. And it's set up very nicely for a final as well. Manchester City against Manchester United's a final that we've never seen before. And I think it's a match that's worthy of a final. So a long time coming, if you ask me.
It's crazy to think how, we've such strong rivals, but we've
Mm,
never had a final against each other. It is
mental.
crazy to think.
Mental, absolutely mental of all the top clashes that we've had over the years. There's never been a final, both League Cup or FA Cup, and this is the first one. And actually, when it comes to domestic competitions, we don't seem to face you guys that often.
It tends to be a semi-final and they go back up.
Yeah, it does. It just tends to be semi-finals. We've had you in the FA Cup back in 2011. I know we've had you at the Etihad a few years back. I think it was a third or a fourth round match as well. But other than that, I don't normally come across you in the domestic cup. So it should be a really good game of football. It'd be very interesting. There's lots of individual battles all across the pitch, and I think it'll be a very narrow and a very narrow, close game. I think this one, just like it was at Old Trafford as well.
Absolutely. We'll say hello to people who's in the chat and we'll get going with the preview. Good evening, Sophia. Hope you're well. Thanks for coming in and let's get the trophy. I can only hope. Hey there, Reese. Hope you're well. Thanks for coming into the chat. And he has also put the link in for your channel, Jason, in the live chat as well.
Fabulous, thank you.
So if you haven't already, go and subscribe to Jason's YouTube channel. Hey there, Rather. Thank you for coming in. Hope you are well. I know there's already a lot of questions already. Hey there, Andrew. Hope you are well. Thanks for coming in. Some controversial opinions coming from me tonight. I'd like to hear them, Andrew. Let's see how controversial we are. And hey there, thanks for coming in. Hope that you are well. Thank you for coming into the channel. Ravi's right though. If City play against us like they did against Madrid, it will be a very long day.
It's very interesting because I'm expecting City to go, if not the same team that we played against Madrid at home, it'll be certainly very close. I'm talking 9-10 players. And I was just saying before we came live here to Maisy that this is the first time in just under 3 weeks that we've actually seen Manchester City go full strength with a match. So the players should be nice and fresh. However, also it might just take the players a good 30 or 40 minutes to get going. And so it'll be very interesting to see what the approach was and how long it takes City to get going. It'll be interesting to see United's point of view as well as to whether you're going to have a good pop at us from the get-go or whether you're going to try and what I'm expecting to see is two teams here that will take the first 20 minutes just to try and suss each other out. That big Wembley pitch always makes games very patient, very close, very narrow games. But I'm hoping we'll see some goals in this game. I really do. I'm hoping it'll be an entertaining one. What I am hoping for, more than anything else, I do mind losing, but what I don't mind is if we've ended up being beat because Manchester United have deserved to beat us. What I don't want is a match like Old Trafford where we put ourselves into such a good position and then one decision goes against us, our heads drop, United capitalise because of it. Thankfully, it's not cost us at the end of the season in the Premier League, but that was one of the most frustrating moments that we've had this season. And heading into this game, I can't help but just go back to Old Trafford and what happened. I'm hoping the players aren't going to be thinking about that, and I'm hoping there's going to be nice and professional head into the game. And as I said, we've got two teams here with two very good managers, with two excellent teams across all positions, got some good options on the bench as well. It should be a really interesting game. And I can't think of a better way for the domestic season to come to a head than Manchester City taking on Manchester United for the biggest prize of them all in a domestic cup competition.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it indeed. Hey there, GTV. Thanks for coming in. Hope you are well. Andrew's got his controversial predictions in already. City gets more goals than United do shots. Oh, that's not good. City have 70% plus possession. That wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. United have a player sent off. City are levels above, and the one weather counter will counter against Man United. Oh,
Not optimistic?
not optimistic indeed, by the sound of it. But it's, I know, to be honest, I know you touched on that Old Trafford game a little bit, but I completely agree with what you're saying. Is when you lose, you do want to lose to that you've tried and you've lost. Because I've always said, in terms of rivalry, if you don't perform against your rivals, what you're doing at this club. That's how I always look at it. And I said it when we lost 7-0 against Liverpool this season. I've said it when it was at 6-3 against yourself, because I was appalled at the scoreline. I know a lot of people was. I was probably more angry on the day. But then I look back at it later on and go, well, if you look at it by equations, it's like a 2-1 loss. So I had to try and make myself feel a little bit more confident in that way. But
To be fair, when we faced, obviously we face a lot of teams across the season. There's not many teams that come to the Etihad and get anything. I mean, we've taken apart some world-class teams, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid in the Champions League. They've come to the Etihad, they've scored no goals, they've lost by 3 or 4. It happens. But I think one thing United hold, I think this is, again, just a little bit of psychological, not saying a psychological advantage, but a little bit of psychological bit of mind games that United can have is you hold the fact that you have beaten us this season, and in your last game that you faced against us, you've beaten us as well. So I've been speaking to a lot of City fans in the build up to this, and I know a lot of City fans feel like I do. It's a Manchester derby. Every time you head into a derby, it's the game more than any other that means the most to the fans. I don't know about the United point of view, but from the City point of view, the fixtures come out. The first fixture everyone's looking for is, when are we facing Manchester United? When is the Manchester derby? Because that's the game everyone looks forward to the most, but also makes you the most nervous. And just putting in a little bit more seasoning of an FA Cup trophy on the line there as well, I think just adds to the nerves. And for the City fans, a lot of people have been speaking over the last week about, what would you rather have? Would you rather lose the Champions League but beat Manchester United in this game, or would you rather lose this game but win in the Champions League next week? And you'd be very, very interested about what their fans' thoughts are on that as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when you do look at fixtures each season, I always look at Liverpool and Manchester City, because, like, as much as there's we've got a strong rivalry, I think there's a lot more hate when it comes to Liverpool. I think you can really see it with United and Liverpool. But I feel like, I don't know about you, but with the Manchester derby, like, compared to how it was like 10 years ago, it just seems to have not quieting down, but it seems to be a lot more friendlier than what it used to be.
I think what we're just starting to see in the Manchester derby, I mean, keeping an eye on United's progress, we've seen City rise up, and when it got to like 2010, 2011, 2012 and 13, the clubs were literally neck and neck. There was nothing to choose between the two. I think that was pretty, over the last maybe 20 years or so, you saw two big clubs here going toe for toe in the same city. Since then, since Alex Ferguson's left, United haven't really got it right, whereas City have since we've appointed Pep Guardiola. So there's been a little bit of a gap, but what we've just started to see over the last, 12 months or so, is that gap, I think, is just starting to get a little bit smaller. United are improving, they're looking more confident. They've secured Champions League football this season. They've got a domestic cup to their name. They could be doing a domestic double, which is a massive improvement for United. And what we've learned under Pep Guardiola is that sometimes winning breeds winning, and to have that winning mentality to help you get over the line. Every time there's something on the line, you want to win that game. If there's a trophy on the line like there is tomorrow for this game, Manchester United, if I was a United fan looking at this, I'd be thinking, I want to win this game just to have a psychological advantage against City to say we've won 2 cups this season. We're improving every single day. We're going to add some top quality players in the summer, and that gap we're going to be looking to try and get it shorter and shorter until eventually, I mean, if you stick with Erik ten Hag and you back him, and I reckon give it 2 or 3 seasons, you'll be right up there at the top of the Premier League competing. So I'm hoping that from the City point of view that we'll continue with our continuous progression that we have, and just keep adding to the squad where we need to add, and just keep things nice and fresh. And sometimes it's just all about adaptability, and I think that's what Man City have done right this season. It wasn't working so much through November to February time for us, in a little bit of a transition mid-season. Once we got it right, though, and the players were motivated, and you win 2 or 3 in a row, all of a sudden your confidence comes up, and bam, you're away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. This final as well, as much as it's as you like to say, getting one over on your rival, it's also, as you've mentioned, a double for Manchester United. It could be on your way for a potential treble for Manchester City, and that would equal to the 99 treble.
No,
What Manchester United?
We're not talking about that. We're not talking
Not yet.
about that.
Not yet. Not till it happens.
No. Not talking about that. I think the big problem we've got with this, the treble that just keeps getting mentioned, I think it just puts unnecessary pressure onto the team, and without thinking too much about wanting to replicate what United have done in '99, which is a remarkable. I don't want to sit here and keep praising Manchester United, but the achievement in 1999 was a remarkable achievement. I mean, the fact that it's not been achieved again in 24 years, it shows that it is a very difficult thing to be done. And I think the best way of City going about it, rather than comparing ourselves, is just to keep focused on the next 90 minutes and getting the job at hand done. That's where the Premier League's fantastic, because you have so many distractions, Champions League quarterfinals, semi-final matches, that you're just taking, games are just coming in thick and fast. But as soon as you get towards the end of the season and where we're at now, you're playing once a week, your focus is on one game at a time. You pick up 1 or 2 bad results along the way, and all of a sudden you start having doubts, and you start overthinking things as well. And so for me, I think City's best approach here is just to say, we've got an FA Cup final, we're playing Manchester United. You go out there and you play top quality football like we did against Bayern Munich, like we did against Real Madrid. Because if we do, no disrespect to yourselves, but if we do match that level that we can play, then there's no team in the world that can live with City, and City will go on to score 3 or 4 goals in this game. That's the level that we're looking for. But it's all about man management and gameplay. United find an opening goal the first 10, 15 minutes. City come out, slow out the blocks because they're not feeling as sharp as what they have been over the last, 4 or 5 weeks or so. And all of a sudden, then you start having doubts, and some of the players might start thinking, do you know what? I don't want to use up all my energy here for this game. We've got Inter Milan next week in a Champions League final, which is, at the end of the day, to the players anyway, I think is more important to them to win the Champions League than it is to win this game. But I don't think that's the fan opinion at all.
No, because as a fan base, because if I was in Manchester City fans' shoes, I'd want the Champions League more than anything. But then you're looking on the same breath thinking, I just want to beat my rivals. Like, I think you're in like one of them kind of situations where you still do want to do both. But I do agree what you're saying regarding treble talks. As you don't want to get too going too much into it. I know Roy Keane, Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville was doing a combined 11, and I do think it is quite a lot. I completely agree with that. Hey there as well to our number. Thank you for coming in. Hope you are well. Talking about Man City, because you've actually used different formations this season, and I'm literally mind baffled. What is your best formation? Can I just ask?
So we play at the moment, and this is where I've seen quite a few of the YouTube channels, the big YouTube channels that have been doing a lot of these combined 11s, and some people have been asking me about my thoughts, and I struggle to do a combined 11 because you're looking at United's system and City's system, and it's so different, very different, and how we play is very. I mean, as I was saying before, sometimes it's about adaptability, and I think that's where Man City have got extremely correct with Pep Guardiola, because he's not scared to make them decisions, to change formations, to change a philosophy mid-season and get it right. It upset players. João Cancelo left in January, and João Cancelo, to me, walks into every single Premier League team because he is a top quality player. And Man City just shipped him off because he didn't suit the system and he wasn't prepared to knuckle down and try and adapt as best that he could. And because of that, City said, you know what, on your bike, we'll bring in somebody else and we'll have somebody else play in that position instead. So we did play more like a traditional 4-3-3 with wingers. Our wingers aren't the quickest. We play a lot with, at the time, was Riyad Mahrez and Jack Grealish. Mahrez on the right, Grealish on the left, and they both like to cut in. And what Mahrez and Grealish are very good at is their defensive positioning and tracking back and helping out the fullbacks. And so because of that, when we're playing with narrow wingers, and we've not seen Mahrez get too many minutes over the last 2 months or so, and that's mainly because Bernardo Silva's been getting used on the right wing, and he's a phenomenal player. He'll be literally everywhere on the pitch. He never stops running. He's a workhorse. He's outstanding. But we like to have our wingers track back and cover more defensively. And I know some people have been saying, who do you prefer to have, Marcus Rashford or Jack Grealish, when it comes to that left-hand side? And to me, I can't answer that question because I could put Marcus Rashford in Manchester City's team. He has the quality. He's got outstanding pace. He's good in front of goal. He's confident. He knows where the back of the net is. But he doesn't do what Jack Grealish does for Manchester City, and that sometimes is Nathan Ake might be cutting into defensive midfield. There's a big hole on the left-hand side. We don't play left backs. Is Marcus Rashford going to go and slot in at left back and help the team? And that's what I mean. Whereas Jack Grealish, often I've seen it against the likes of Bayern Munich and the likes of Real Madrid, where he will get into them positions defensively to help Manchester City out. And the movement that City have got on the ball is brilliant, but the movement that we've got off the ball is absolutely outstanding. And this formation that we play, so it's like a 3-2-2-2-1 kind of formation. So we'll play with a back three. I suspect tomorrow will either be Walker or Akanji on the right side of a back three. Ruben Diaz will go through the middle, and it'll be Nathan Ake. He's fit, ready to go. He'll be going on the left-hand side, I suspect. If we don't want to go with Nathan Ake, he might go with Walker, Diaz, and Akanji on the left-hand side. One of the big players in the defensive positions for City, someone's going to be unlucky to miss out next week against Inter Milan. One of them players is going to be very unlucky and missing out on starting in a Champions League final. But it's just about having your squad fit at this point in the season when you're competing for the trophies. And then we've gone with something called an inverted fullback. So at the moment, we've been trialing the likes of a young lad named Rico Lewis. He was the one that was keeping João Cancelo out of the team. We've been trialing Kyle Walker there, and Pep Guardiola said about 3 months ago, Kyle Walker can't play in that position, and so he's not going to be utilised in that position. So the only other player that we've got that can sit in that inverted fullback is John Stones. So this is why I think City might go with Kyle Walker tomorrow, just because if we're off the ball and we want to slot into a back four, John Stones can push back. Kyle Walker will move to right back and it'll go as a flat back four. And if we wanted to attack and go further forward, you'll notice John Stones doesn't go on the right-hand side. He'll cut right through the middle and he'll play alongside Rodri, and either one of them two will just carry on pushing forward. And then it's just about individual quality pass there. You've got Gundogan, De Bruyne that will play further ahead in midfield. Bernardo will go on one side, Grealish will go on the other, and then Haaland his job will be to drop deep, receive the ball, hang to the left, hang to the right, look for the space around, and then the likes of De Bruyne's job will be to try and find Haaland in the space for City, is what we will be trialling to do. It'd be interesting. I saw that comment come up there about Kyle Walker's impressive job on Vinicius Jr. Yeah. Outstanding job. He loves a good challenge. He loves going up against the pacey players. Did a brilliant job for England in that match against France in the quarterfinals of the World Cup against Mbappe. And that comes from experience. We've faced PSG a few times. Every time we faced them, Kyle Walker's kept Kylian Mbappe quiet. And I'm wondering tomorrow, if we do go with Kyle Walker, his job might just be to be isolated out of the game and just man Marcus Rashford out of the game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the players you've mentioned, Kyle Walker, I think he's absolutely fantastic, and he's got that experience of playing as a centre-back from the England squad, because that's where Gareth Southgate has used him. And as Andrew has said, and you have said, he is fantastic with pacey players. I don't think there's any pacey player who's got past Kyle Walker. There's not many people in this world who could pocket Mbappe, who could pocket Vinny Jr. It's very hard for somebody to do that. And for Kyle Walker to do that, I think is absolutely brilliant. And Kyle Walker, I think even so, I still think he's improved as a player. Just because he's more versatile. He's still one of them kind of players. He can go a bit forward if he wants to, but I do think, this is from my opinion, he does look a lot better defensively. I know someone mentioned in the chat about John Stones moving as a midfielder. He's become a lot more versatile, and I think for me, he's been fantastic in that role, and him rotating that with Rico Lewis, who's been looking like a fantastic young player, I think it's really, really great. And Nathan Ake, I think this is probably his best season at City so far, and I think he'll probably have a lot more better seasons indeed. And we can't miss Erling Haaland, of course. He's an absolute machine of a striker.
He's a difficult player to stop when he's in for a full rhythm. I would say second half of the season, the defenders in the Premier League have adapted a little bit better to Erling Haaland than what they have in the first half of the season. But I think Erling Haaland, at the end of the day, has had to adapt his game to suit the City system. There's been times where he's wanted to go for goal and he's looked for the pass instead. And I think that was Pep Guardiola's coaching in wanting Erling Haaland. It's striker, it is about scoring goals, but sometimes with the quality in particular that City have got, we don't lack goals. If Erling Haaland's not going to score the goals, you've got players like Jack Grealish, Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, or Ilkay Gundogan, who time and time again find the back of the net. So I just think it's important for Erling Haaland that he continues with his progression and he continues just to try and be a smarter football player. And that might not necessarily mean, it might sound crazy, it might involve him not scoring as many goals for Manchester City, but Erling Haaland's the type of player that drags two defenders away. It creates so much space for everybody else, and we've got quality all around him. So the fact that he can draw away a couple of defenders, for when you're talking about the likes of Bernardo Silva, he's going to be all over that. And that was one big success we had against Real Madrid in how Erling Haaland was helping against them, because he was just drawing defenders out of position. If you're going to play that offside trap, you're making sure your wingers are looking across the line. And as long as you're going to be clinical in front of goal like City was, then you're going to have every success going forward. And I think that tactic that we went with against Madrid, I think is our best approach here against you guys. I really do. I think it's just to be ruthless, to say we're going to keep going, because that first 20 minutes at the Etihad before we found the first goal was absolutely relentless from City. City were hell-bent on scoring that first goal. Real Madrid, I think Vinicius Jr., he was stood on the side and Pep Guardiola just tapped him and just said, "Are you playing in this game?" And he had a laugh with him because he's not touched the ball. Real Madrid couldn't get it out of their own half. This is Real Madrid, the current European champions, and we'd managed to pin them in. And I think that would be my approach here against United. The only problem that we have is that Wembley pitch is so big. In trying to press, you'll soon get tired. So it's going to be a very narrow, very close game. There's the chance of either team being able to string together 450, 500 passes is unlikely. I think possession-wise, you said someone before said 70% possession on that big Wembley pitch. I'd be very surprised if it was not much closer than that, at like a 54-46 kind of way. And it could be United. City may be happy to invite pressure, sit off a little bit, and just try and look for space, hurt you on the counter-attack. We find that first goal, we'll then push our line further forward and try and pin you that way. There's lots of different ways this game could go. So it's all just about looking at the situation, being smart, which is something I think City have improved on over the last 12 months. Our management of games has been outstanding. Saw it last year against Real Madrid. We wasn't smart. We went to sleep. We conceded a couple of late goals. We didn't make it to Paris. None of that this season. They're smart, they're motivated, they know what they need to do. And as long as they are focused tomorrow and they're motivated, I'm confident that we will win. My only problem is I'm wondering if the City squad will just have one eye on Inter Milan. And when you're playing against Manchester United with the quality that United have got, if we have one eye on Inter Milan, you will beat us.
Just wanted to say hello there, Dads. Thanks for coming in. Hope you are well. I think for me, with the way Manchester United are gonna probably play, I have a feeling they'll probably play a bit like how they played against Newcastle in the Carabao
Mm-hmm.
Cup final. The first half, try and get a goal or two, and then you seen it in the second half. Manchester United invited all the pressure, and they just defended for their lives. And I think bringing on the likes of Wan-Bissaka, I don't think he will do it this time round. I think he will start Wan-Bissaka because he's improved massively in this season. He's improved in terms of going forward by a country mile. So I do believe that he'll probably have Wan-Bissaka there to control that right hand side. And I've always think for me is Wan-Bissaka majority of the time. I'd say 9 times out of 10, he's probably probably one of our best defenders against Manchester City.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just like that odd time when Phil Foden come on the left hand side and he wasn't able to control. But Phil Foden's an absolute fantastic player, so versatile. You could play pretty much anywhere in that forward line. But I think for me, a part of me has that feeling is that Manchester United, because my friend at work had a feeling that Manchester United's game plan could potentially get the whole 120 minutes in, so we could try and tire out Manchester City ready for the Champions League final.
Interesting take. I think I'm not sure about the players. It's the fans. The fans will want City not to win that treble, obviously, and they'll want it's in United's hands to get the job done because the talk of the treble ends obviously after tomorrow if United get that victory. I'm wondering what the motivation's going to be for the players. I'm wondering because a lot of the players. I don't know what teams they support. I presume it's very much like the case with, unless you're an academy player that's grown up and lived and breathed Manchester United, it's very much a professional. It's a job to the players. So for them to come in and say, "I want to end Manchester City's treble," I'm not so sure because if it was Alex Ferguson in charge, I'd say 100%. I think the job here for Manchester United will be more so there's an FA Cup on the line, there's progress to be made. That's their motivation that they're looking for. And you've got just so happens to be, you get the chance here to beat Manchester City and end a treble, which is just a little bit of a bonus. Now, I find it very interesting about that point about taking it over 120 minutes and try and tire Manchester City out. I think that's a good a potentially good tactic for Manchester United to go along because I know you more than I imagine the confidence will be there anyway that you're more than happy to drag it for 120 minutes, and if it goes to penalties you've already got the advantage that you beat Brighton in the semi-finals on penalties as well, that you'll be motivated and confident enough that you can take it to a penalty shootout and be able to beat Manchester City. Stance here for City for me has to be with Inter Milan coming up. I want this game won. And ideally, if we can get this game won, I would like it won as soon as possible that some of the players that might be featuring can just start to be rotated. But as I was saying before, these players haven't played together for nearly 3 weeks. So they should be nice and fresh. And I can't imagine being too much rotation from City's point of view unless things aren't going right for us because Pep Guardiola, for some reason, I mean, he'd been calling for it for years and years for more substitutes, and these 5 substitutes, gets the 5 substitutes, and I think a couple of times this season hasn't used any substitutes. So I don't think he likes changing things. He just sticks with his game plan, and that's what we're going to do.
I was reading this report today that City was supposed to be using their number 2 goalkeeper in the final. Yep. I don't know how true that is.
Oh, Pep Guardiola's already confirmed it. He is. Or Stefan Ortega Moreno starts. We've got a good squad. So Stefan Ortega Moreno started every single FA Cup game, I think, this season. He certainly started every game. I'm fairly sure he started every single game in the FA Cup for us. We've not conceded a goal. So whilst that's the case, I've got absolutely no problem. He started against Brighton in the Premier League, conceded 1, had a good game. He started against Chelsea in the game before that in the Premier League, kept a clean sheet. He's a good goalkeeper. The only thing he's not got is his distribution's nowhere near as good as Ederson's. With this big Wembley pitch, as I was saying to you before, I don't think that Manchester United are going to be pressing City that much because you'll soon get tired. 10, 15 minutes of a constant barrage on that Wembley pitch and they'll be absolutely exhausted. I think both teams will be happy to play the patient game and wait for their opportunities. And so with that in mind, I don't think distribution out from the back is going to be too big of a factor here. And Ortega Moreno is a much better shot stopper than what Ederson is. So I'm happy for that. I think Ederson will get the nod, though, in the Champions League final. But Ortega Moreno, I think, can get the job done here. And I don't think Pep Guardiola has gone for sentiment here and said, you're our number 2, you're going to be starting all the cup games. That includes the final as well. I think he's just he's been, for some reason, over the last 5 or 6 games, he's just been weighing up as to whether Ortega Moreno is better suited to that game or is Ederson better suited. If we're expecting teams who've got very good set pieces to be playing, Ortega Moreno's better at set pieces, he'll be starting. If teams are going to be having shots at us, Ortega Moreno will start because he's a better shot stopper. If teams aren't going to have that much of a pop at us and we need our distribution to be on point, Ederson will start.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting to hear because I was wondering myself as to why he may start, but I can see your points completely regarding the pitch of Wembley and go on. Yo, you go first.
I just think Pep Guardiola just looks at each game, and I think he just looks at it because he does the amount of research and the amount of homework that he does is mind blowing. And he'll have a good look at Manchester United, and he'll be thinking to himself, United are going to have a pop at us at some point. They will find space. You will have 2, 3, 4 good opportunities in the final. Who's going to be the best player in goal? Who's going to be able to make them saves when we need him? And Ortega Moreno is that answer. And because of that, he'll get given the nod. As I said, next week against Inter, it will be Ederson that starts because I think it's going to be, we're not on as big of a pitch. There's going to be pressing. There's going to be lots of physicality onto the pitch. And so I think City's distribution needs to be outstanding more next week than it does need to be here when it comes to the goalkeeper. Everywhere else on the pitch, though, distribution, very important. I'm sure you found that out with Eric Ten Hag. Being able to string more than 4 passes together helps you in being able to create opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the thing is I wish I could, for instance, have a rotation of goalkeeper. Must be honest. But I do think for me is, I think Manchester United will probably go with the same lineup. Although we've got a few injuries. I don't know if you've heard the latest with the injuries for Man United, but Antony is not going to be there playing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's injured. He's supposed to be out for 2 months after that Chelsea game. And then Luke Shaw, he is at a doubt. He's travelled, but he's at doubt. So I do think that we probably are going to have Sancho, Rashford, and a partner. I'm 50-50 out of Weghorst and Garnacho because as much as I like Garnacho, I just don't think him playing on the left-hand side starting against Manchester City is going to do us any favours whatsoever.
It's an interesting one because you're literally looking at, do you go with someone who's got pace and precision or do you go with someone who's got the physicality to measure up to City's defence? And you might just want to look for a bit of, Weghorst has got an advantage because you've got set play that you can aim for. And it's a big advantage I've found this season for City. The big difference we've had this season, having Erling Haaland on set pieces, having that physical presence is far better when you're putting balls into the box than when we had Raheem Sterling and Gabriel Jesus starting because neither of them players were above 5'9", so you've not really got anybody to be able to get them crosses into the box. Whereas Haaland's 6'4", quick, his reading of the game is outstanding. It causes all kinds of problems, and I can imagine if you do give the nod to Weghorst, then it will be very much a case of he needs to be peeling away from the defender and having a good look across that defensive line. Where does he think he's going to win them aerial duels? Because City's defence...
He never wins them. He never wins them.
But
I've
to
never
be
known him, a 6 foot duel to never win a duel in the air. I've never known it.
to be fair though, he will have the advantage that he'll have, and it's going back to what I was saying with Erling Haaland as well. The only advantage Haaland's got here is he's got the pace to be able to turn players and sprint right up that pitch and do defenders for pace. Weghorst's game might just be his job is to make sure that he receives the ball and he moves the ball along to either someone like Eriksen or Fernandez if they're sitting just behind him, or move it out wide and spread the play that way. Might just be the game plan here. It'd be very interesting if you do go with Garnacho as to Marcus Rashford, because I presume he'd be going up top if
Rashford will play as a
the
striker,
case.
yeah.
That'd be a really interesting battle with him and Ruben Diaz. Really interesting.
Mm-hmm. It would be interesting. I do think though with Garnacho I think he's quite young to start right now. I've always said I want that kind of development with Garnacho, what Pep Guardiola's done with Phil Foden. Do you know where you just ease him into the squad, transition him into the squad, and make him into a fantastic player? Because he definitely has the potential to be a fantastic player. But you will probably agree, over the years at Manchester United, you're just throwing in players from the academy and hope that they'll do a great job. Yeah, they've got the fight. Yeah, they're fearless, but they're still very raw. And that's why you're looking at the likes of Alanga, who hasn't done what you'd hope that he'd want to do, and what the fans wanted to do, because he's been very thrown in easily into the squad. And even though Rashford's been a great academy product, he was thrown in back under the Louis van Gaal era. And based on how Rashford was when he first started, you'd hope that before this season that Rashford was a lot better in his overall play before then.
I think the man management you've got to have with young players, in particular at clubs that are challenging on all fronts, is so difficult to manage. Is you've got to find the fine line between giving them minutes that they're getting their development and also making sure that they are learning the important lessons. Now, I thought that Garnacho had a really good game at Old Trafford against us. Him on that left-hand side in that second half caused all kinds of problems. And I actually think give Garnacho with tiring City legs give him 20, 25 minutes at the end could just be a nice little ace that you hold up your sleeve. Whereas you kind of, with the injuries that you've got, you're kind of limited with the options and what you choose to go with. And it might just be a case of you chuck Garnacho out and you say, you're going to get 60 minutes, 70 minutes here, see what you can do. And if it's not going well, we'll have to take you off and we'll chuck somebody on from the bench to try and make that impact instead. It's a big game. It's a big stage going up against the Premier League's best. But as I said, he's already done it at Old Trafford. So I'm sure he'll be confident that he might be able to do it again. The one thing I want to make crystal clear, though, to all the United fans that are watching this, the City team that you're taking on tomorrow isn't the City team from January. It's a lot different. A lot different.
Definitely a lot different. And I'm sure you're glad, going on to the Premier League a little bit, that you've won the Premier League. I've always said from the beginning, like when people back in January, start February, saying, "Oh, Arsenal's cleared this Premier League title now," and City done exactly what I said. You can never write Man City off. Never, ever, ever write Man City off. I don't know about you, but I think in a kind of way, Pep Guardiola likes a bit of a chase. He likes to chase people a bit, and then he just goes and absolutely destroys every team possible.
It's so unique from what we've seen over the last few seasons. And I actually want to say fair credit to Arsenal for going toe for toe. They did an outstanding job. When they lost to City, they responded. They won every game for the rest of February, throughout March, and they headed into April. And I think if they got that job done at Anfield and held on to the win there, I think this could have been a very close title race. And I think that once you just drop points and your mindset just drifts away ever so slightly, you lose a little bit of focus, you start having some doubts. When you're going up against City, it's game over. There's psychological advantage there. it's game over. And I think the biggest turning point that we've had in the season was us going to the Emirates Stadium. Not only did we beat Arsenal, we outplayed Arsenal in their own backyard whilst having less possession than them. And since then, I think Arsenal that was the reality check that they'd seen, and they've seen to themselves, actually, we're a very good team, but we're not as good as what they are. But the Premier League, it's a 38-game season. It's a marathon sprint. You drop consecutive points, and all of a sudden you find yourself being 5-6 points behind. Because there was one point where United were right up there in January time, wasn't there? And then, you drop some points, all of a sudden you find yourself well off. And there was a point in this Premier League season where I was looking to myself and I was thinking, I think when we just lost to Spurs, I remember in my review video, I said that this might be a case where we're constantly looking over our shoulder at the top four, because at the time we hadn't strung together more than 3 wins in the Premier League together consecutively. All of a sudden, you find the motivation again. We get into that business end of the season. It is very much that, what you said, the business end of the season of Man City and Pep Guardiola. He loves the chase. You say to Pep Guardiola, you need to win your last 12 games in the Premier League to win the Premier League. He sits down and goes, challenge accepted. And he's done it, and he continues to do it. And it's absolutely remarkable. And to be fair, I think the way we won the Premier League this season, I don't know about other City fans, but the fact that we won the Premier League with 3 games to spare was a little bit of a surprise. I was certainly expecting that to go down to potentially the last game of the season. And Arsenal dropping points to win us the Premier League isn't my ideal way of when we've been put into a good chase throughout the last few months for us to win the Premier League. It's a bit anticlimactic, if you ask me. But on the other hand, I did have to say to myself that, do I want it to go to the final day and have the final day nerves of what happened in 2012 and what happened last year with our game against Villa at home where we went 2-0 behind? For some reason, we just like to do it to ourselves. We like to give ourselves a challenge. We put ourselves in a good position. Then we think, you know what, this is too easy. We're gonna sit off. We're gonna give them a 2-0 lead with 10 minutes to go and see where we go from there. See if we can pull it back. Thankfully, we've not had anything like that this season. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that game isn't coming tomorrow where we're going to just give you a couple of goals and see it as challenge accepted to try and pull it all back, or against the Champions League. What I'm looking for here, give me 2 boring 1-0 89th minute winners, and I'll be very happy with that. Very happy.
Well, if it wins you and takes you anywhere, then I happily do that. That one where we lost on goal difference that season, it just haunts me. Like, every time I put on Sky Sports and you just hear, like, you'll love it, even Aguero.
It's one for the ages. It's one for the ages.
Well, it's definitely a game that you'll never forget for any fan. Me in a bad way, you in a very good way. But as a neutral fan, it was a fantastic season as well. And last season, Gundogan, the star man, just as he was again this season, Gundogan helping his being that. I think for me, this is like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. I'd like to say Gundogan he slots in very nicely, and he's kind of like that final piece. What it helps you get to bigger things.
He's one of them players where he sometimes goes missing in a game. You think to yourself, is Gundogan right now with him? He's 32, coming up to 33. You start thinking to yourself, is he as good of a quality as what we're looking for? Is he a squad player? Is he a starting 11 player? When we played against Madrid at the Bernabeu a couple of weeks ago, he didn't have his best game. And then he turns up next game, plays a sensational game, and all of a sudden you think, actually, yeah, he does still have that quality. And he's a big game player. He's one of them players that just turns up the right place at the right time to find them really important goals. And Ilkay Gundogan has made a brilliant habit of, when Manchester City need him most, he is there. And I've got a sneaky feeling over the next 8 days or so, these 2 finals that we've got, at some point, one of them is meant for Ilkay Gundogan to have what may well be his farewell at Manchester City, as his contract's up in less than a month's time. I'm hoping he'll sign a new contract. Still, it's not decided. But if he doesn't, I think it'll be a brilliant farewell for him to do what he's been doing for years, which is right place, right time, put the ball in the back of the net, win Man City the game, and win Man City a trophy. Goes on, lifts the trophy, then leaves the club. It's an excellent way to leave.
Yeah, it was just. Oh, he said, "Oh, he just leaves the club."
It just shows. And honestly, I think he's one of the most underappreciated players. People sit here and speak about the modern day Manchester City legends that we've got, the likes of Fernandinho, David Silva, Sergio Aguero, Yaya Toure, Pablo Zabaleta. But nobody really speaks about Ilkay Gundogan, and he has scored a lot of important goals for us. And he is a player I think that would be missed at Manchester City once he's not here, and you realise what he does bring to the club.
Mhm.
He's one of them players that I think every other Premier League team would love to have an Ilkay Gundogan, even if it's just off the bench, 20 minutes to come on and ask him to sit behind the striker, see if you can go and find that goal, because 9 times out of 10, he does. And he's actually got a really good finish, got a good touch. He moves the ball really well. I think he's a very underappreciated, underrated player.
Agreed. And I think for me, like I really like it when footballers have that, do you like that high IQ on the ball where it's like you feel like they're ahead of the game. And it's very rare as much these days where you do see that. I think David Silva was a great example of a player who's got great football IQ, where he's
Yeah.
so ahead of every other opponent. I said Juan Mata was the exact same with Manchester United and Chelsea. He was quite ahead of the game as well. And I think for me, Gundogan's the exact same. It's like he is ahead of the opponents.
Yeah, he's currently at this moment in time doing his managerial coaching badges, and I think he will give him 5 or 10 years. I think he'll be an outstanding manager. I really do. He's got such a good understanding of the game. He reads the game really well. He reminds me a lot of Mikel Arteta. Is what he reminds me of, and I could see him just going to another club, learning from the best and using all of what he's learned to apply it into the management role. I think he'll be an outstanding manager. I can see why he's going down that route. He reminds me a lot of Vincent Kompany as well. He's just a very smart player who has a really good understanding, very professional, got a fantastic attitude, and yeah, I really am hoping that this isn't going to be our our penultimate game of Ilkay Gundogan. I really, really do hope that he signs a new deal, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Hey there, Torsen. Thanks for coming in. Hope you are well. And hey there as well to Zoe. There's plenty of questions in the chat. So I'm just gonna have a see on questions that we've not mentioned. I'll go with Rabbi's question first. What's your thoughts on your link-up play for this season for you, Jason?
I mean, the fact that we went on a 25 game unbeaten run tells me that the link up play and the bond that the players have got and the ability to be able to cut across and play in several positions and the transitions as well, moving it from defence to attack, or whether it might be a position of defending from a set piece and then being able to counter attack. Manchester City, I don't want to say there's no weaknesses. It's more just a case of when we've been playing with our new formation, since we've been playing with it since February, when we've played our strongest 11, no team has beaten us. So I don't really have any answers on how to counteract that. I'm sure United and Inter over the next 2 games are going to have a real good pop at Manchester City to try and their best to find some weaknesses. But in terms of the link-up play for City, outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And honestly, Pep Guardiola, an absolute genius. And there are some City fans, believe it or not, that think Pep Guardiola isn't all that. They think that he overthinks things and they'll start bringing up games from the past. But the large majority of it, Pep Guardiola makes the correct decisions, and he makes the correct decisions because he has, as we was just talking about there, a brilliant understanding. He's one of them players that when he was playing in the 90s had an outstanding understanding of the game. And it's really helped the players to develop. The fact that we're talking about the likes of Grealish and John Stones, to me, I don't think it's a coincidence that these England players that play for Manchester City come into the England 11, and all of a sudden, since Pep Guardiola's been here, England have become a half decent team who have started doing very well at tournaments. I don't think that's a coincidence. I just think that that's Pep Guardiola and Manchester City helping the Premier League and helping the England players to push to that next level, to get to that next level. So I am very happy with how City have been managed, how we play our football, how we do what we do with the ball as well. I think across all areas is outstanding. And the only thing left for us to do this season now, we've got the Premier League in the bag. We want some more success because I think they deserve it.
Absolutely. I do think for me, every manager overthinks. I don't necessarily say it's just Pep Guardiola, because you see times this season where I'd say Ten Hag has overthought, and that's cost us a few games. I've said this season there has been some times where Ten Hag's management in the game has been a little bit sus. That's not me calling him out or me saying I don't like him as a manager. It's just that I think there could have been some better decisions, and that doesn't make me think any less of him. I still like him very, very much as well. You've seen as well this season Arteta's overthought in games. And especially knowing as well with Arsenal is, I think Arteta's main focus was that Premier League, and I think it just got a little bit too much by the time it got to the end of the season. And you're looking at, again, a lot of teams have massively overthought, and I think with a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's just Pep Guardiola," I think it's or just saying, "Oh, Pep Guardiola overthinks." It's quite unfair to say when a lot of managers, I personally say, overthink.
I think it's just at the point in the football game right now where I think everything, all the technology that's coming in, that the knowledge that everyone's receiving, the analysis that they've got, that there's so much to think about with the game and the level depth that goes into, because it's not just about philosophy, it's not just about mentality, it's about understanding who you are going up against. And if you're going up against a very good team. So if I, for example, this game tomorrow, I'm looking at where's the dangers, and I'm thinking I don't want Marcus Rashford really getting a yard on any of our players, because he's got the precision there and the pace to be able to hurt City to get in and around our lines. I think about that. I'm sure Pep Guardiola will be thinking about that, and he'll be going, well, what's the best way of dealing with that? Man mark him out of the game. Do you go with Kyle Walker? Do you go with Akanji? It's not overthinking it. It's just being sensible. And I'm sure United will be looking at it and you'll be thinking, what's the best way of stopping the Premier League top goal scorer, Erling Haaland, adding to his talent? They'll be thinking, right, well, let's have a look at what the other teams have been doing against it. When Erling Haaland hasn't scored this season, what have the formations of these teams been playing? What did they do that was different to try and counter against Erling Haaland? And then try and replicate it as best that you can. So you're adapting your team to suit your opponents, but you have to find a fine line between adapting too much and then you become disjointed, or adapting it, just tinkering it a little bit to try and suit how you're playing your style of football, whilst also just showing respect to your opponents that you are playing. And that's why I think tomorrow's game is going to be such a tactical game of football. It's going to be a fascinating game. And it's one of those, if I was a neutral watching it, I'd find it fascinating with what's happening on the field. What is the reality for me, I don't know about for you guys, is I'm going to be sitting there nervous, very nervous, thinking this is a Manchester derby, it's an FA Cup final. You want to beat us, we want to beat you. It's the best way to win and it's the worst way to lose. Exactly. Because of that, it leads to nerves.
Exactly. I will be very nervous, let's just say, when it does come to tomorrow. Reese has got a question for you as well, Jason. With Busquets leaving Barcelona, and this has been confirmed, he has named Rodri as his number one man to replace him. Are you worried about Barcelona signing Rodri?
If Barcelona had money, I would be very concerned about them signing every player that we've got. We've got very close ties with Barcelona. We've got their former chiefs in charge at City. We've got their legendary manager that's in charge of our club, who's got tremendous respect for Barcelona. And I'm sure we've seen it before. Bernardo Silva's always getting linked with a move to Barcelona. The big problem Barcelona's got.
As well.
It has, and Gundogan's more realistic because they don't have to pay a transfer fee. It'll be for free. Whereas with Rodri, you want to prize away Manchester City's best holding midfielder, in my opinion, that we've ever had. It's going to cost a lot of money. Quite frankly, it's money that Barcelona do not have. But the one advantage Barcelona do still have when it comes to European pedigree, in particular with Spanish players, is or Iberian players as well. I've seen it with Bernardo Silva. Is when Barcelona starts talking, these players listen, and it's very easy for their heads to get twisted. They become a little bit unsettled, and all of a sudden they want to leave. Ferran Torres, great outstanding prospect for City, wanted to leave. Eric Garcia, outstanding prospect for City. Barcelona comes calling, I want to leave. Bernardo Silva's told us 3 times over the last 3 years, Barcelona have called, I would like to leave. So it's an interesting one. I think you've got to look at it as where's best for your football development. And I'd hope Rodri would sit there and say, actually, game on game, I'm improving and I'm becoming one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. And where's better for me to be than at Manchester City learning with Pep Guardiola. I think at some point, wouldn't surprise me if Barcelona came calling for Rodri. I don't see it happening anytime soon, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like years ago, it was one of them like you want to be in Barcelona or Real Madrid in your prime. That's how every single player looked at it. You want to be in one of them teams in your prime. You want to win La Liga. You want to be in the Champions League. And I think I think for me is La Liga isn't the league that we've seen over the years. It is not that it's not an attractive league, but you're looking at leagues now are developing so well. Like the Premier League is developing well. You're looking at the likes of the Italian league is growing very, very well as well. Them two leagues are becoming absolutely fantastic. And if you, for me, I don't think in terms of. I think the only thing what's got their pool now, Real Madrid and Barcelona especially, is the club's name rather than what they've achieved, what they can achieve. Because you've seen a lot better teams in the last 5 to 10 years what have done a miles better accomplishment than Barcelona.
I would. I mean, it all depends on what the player's motivation is, really.
Yeah.
I would say individual players. We could look at Jude Bellingham. He wants to go to Real Madrid. It'd be very interesting to sit down with Jude Bellingham and ask him, why do you want to go to Real Madrid ahead of Manchester City, ahead of Liverpool?
I read
What's
as
your
well that he was
reason
a
for that
Barcelona
decision?
fan. I read he was
So,
a Barcelona fan, and back in I read it's like someone said like back in high school he wanted to join Barcelona when he was a professional footballer.
yes, it all just depends on. I mean, I think you're seeing here these teenagers and the players in their early 20s that when they're growing up watching football, they'll have been watching Barcelona in their
Yeah.
prime. They'll have watched Cristiano Ronaldo when he was playing for Real Madrid rather than for Manchester United. And I think that's what lures these players, because it's all fine and well for these professional football players saying what teams do they support and where are they from, etc., etc. I think the more interesting question is ask these professional football players, what players are they looking up to? What teams are they looking up to? Who do they want to play for? And I think these players at these ages now are always saying Real Madrid and Barcelona, and it'll be very interesting. Give it another 10 years, and these people will be saying, I've been watching the Premier League. I was watching Man City under Pep Guardiola. I was watching Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp push Manchester City all the way. I watched Liverpool win the Champions League. And I'm sure for United's point of view, you'll be hoping to be able to create your own bits of success now where you could start to build on that, because it'd be good for the club to be able to have a Premier League or a Champions League, just to say, actually, it's what appeals to make people want to not just support the club, but make people, if they're aspiring football players, want to join that club as well. And I actually think the Premier League could do a little bit more to try and pull in more top talents from around the world, because you're still seeing time and time again lots of talented football players still choosing not to come to the Premier League, because the Premier League's very much seen as the complete article, the most difficult league with the most difficult teams to get in. And what we were speaking about before with the young players will be thinking, why do I want to be a part-time player at Manchester City or at Manchester United when I can go and play for Borussia Dortmund? I can go and play for Napoli or AC Milan, and I can get regular first team football instead and still have success. So it's all about management. It's all about finding that fine balance, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Just before I go on to the next question, I was reading rumours today that Cancelo was apparently wanting to go Barcelona in January.
Yeah, I think Barcelona asked a question. I think Xavi said he wanted Cancelo at Barcelona, and Man City said no. And City said no. I think it's all to do with finances. I think Bayern Munich were willing to cover the wages. Barcelona weren't willing to cover as much of the wages. I don't think Barcelona had any option to buy Cancelo, whereas Bayern Munich were willing to have that option. I mean, Bayern Munich aren't going to be signing Cancelo for the 70 million euros that City are asking for, but they are happy to negotiate. And I'll be honest, I'm amazed there's not more Premier League interest in Cancelo. I know Arsenal are interested, but I'm surprised there aren't other teams calling City, because I think that's one of the most interesting transfers we've got this summer, about what do we choose to do with Cancelo, because we can't bring in a defender until we sell Cancelo, because that's how we work our finances now. We sell players first, and then we'll use that for net spend, and then we'll bring somebody else in. And with Cancelo, we're talking European teams can't afford to sign him, but Premier League clubs are happy to pay what City are asking for. But City don't want to sell the top players to these Premier League clubs, because we end up with this Zinchenko and Jesus situation like we had with Arsenal, where we end up aiding our rivals, so to speak. But it'd be very interesting, should there be more Premier League interest in Cancelo, to try and tempt City to sell.
I'm surprised because I think, for me, Cancelo's one of the best fullbacks in the world. There's no doubt about that. And I think I know he would never come to Man United now, but I would have happily took Cancelo. Just because I think he's an absolute fantastic player. And he will be good in the lights of like Newcastle's development, to play him on the left-hand side. And he'd be great as well at Arsenal. But I think, for me, I've always said that I don't think Pep Guardiola would sell a player if he feels like he's going to be under a threat by that certain team.
I mean, Pep Guardiola started to get more of a say on the transfers over the last 2 years or so. So I presume this is very much a Pep Guardiola thing of, he doesn't want to be... I mean, because we had Mikel Arteta here at City learning from Pep Guardiola, so he knows his philosophy, he knows how he works, brings in the former players, and all of a sudden you're looking at Man City B team with Arsenal, and Man City's B team just happens to be a very good team. So... and players grow frustrated, they grow unhappy, they get frustrated with the game time. Sometimes things are going well and you're not getting a look in. I mean, we've seen it with Aymeric Laporte. Aymeric Laporte's a fantastic player, but he's not getting in the City starting 11. Julian Alvarez is, I think, facing a similar situation where he's joined Man City. He's an absolutely world-class player. How do Man City get him involved in the game? How do we get him some minutes? Because at the moment, it's all about Erling Haaland. And because of that, he gets linked with the exit door. So
it's the same though as well, I'd say, with Calvin Phillips, because before he came to Manchester City, I said he could get into any other Premier League side and be a starting 11 player for me, in my personal opinion. I'm actually a massive fan of Calvin Phillips. I've been a massive fan of him since the Championship days for Leeds, and I think, for me, is the way he played. I think he could have got into a lot of the Premier League sides, and I just think he's had injuries, yes. He hasn't performed as well as probably people would have hoped, but there's no way he would ever have got in over this kind of Rodri.
Well, I think what you just said there right at the end is absolutely spot on. And that's why Calvin Phillips isn't getting in the team. He's got Rodri ahead of him. No one's displacing Rodri, which means Calvin Phillips' game time is going to be very limited. And we're going back to what I was saying before about adaptability. If you want to play for Manchester City, you've got to be adaptable, because there's space all around our squad if you're willing to work hard. And I don't think Calvin Phillips can veter away from being that central midfielder, that holding midfielder, which is his position, which is what he's obviously a very good player in being able to do. And Rodri keeps himself very fit. He doesn't have any injuries, which is fantastic for us. And so Calvin Phillips hasn't really had the opportunity. He hasn't had 3 or 4 starts, because I'm sure with Man City's strongest 11 starting and take Rodri's name out and Calvin Phillips in, the squad might not be as good, but it'll still be outstanding, because he's got outstanding players all around him. And you've just got to be patient. Rodri got off to a sticky start at City, struggled to adapt. Once he did adapt, he was brilliant. Nathan Ake is another player, struggled to get in the starting 11, gets given his chance, puts in an impressive performance, and all of a sudden, he's very hard to drop, because he's just an all-round brilliant player. And I'm hoping that City will keep hold of Calvin Phillips for another 12 months, and we'll see how he gets on, because if City rate you enough to spend 42 million quid on you, then obviously you've got something about you that they like, that there's something there. I just don't think Calvin Phillips has helped himself with his injuries. He reported back from the World Cup overweight, which I don't think Pep Guardiola liked. But over the last 3-4 months, I've not heard anything about Calvin Phillips, which is good. You don't want to be hearing anything. You're hearing something, means something's gone wrong, and that's why people are talking about it. So hopefully he can just knuckle down. He's spoken about his frustrations in public. He's open, he's honest, he's a nice lad, he's a good player. If he knuckles down for the next 12 months, we'll see what happens. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm sure there'll be lots of other top clubs willing to take on Calvin Phillips, because he is, at the end of the day, an England international who's a very good football player. But sometimes you're just going back to that equation again of, are you a big fish in the small pond? Or are you you're going down that route? Jack Grealish, I think, faced the same situation when he played for Aston Villa. He was obviously their biggest and best player, came into City, and all of a sudden he was very much the small fish in a very big pond. And it took him well over 12 months to adapt. And there's still more adapting for Jack Grealish to do. But one thing we have seen is his attitude. That's his main attribute. He's knuckled down, worked hard, and he is now getting the rewards for that. And it would be nice for him to get some personal achievements, get some goals and assists in there, because he is one of the most hard-working players that Manchester City have. You'll see it tomorrow. He'll be bombing up and down that left wing like nobody's business. United want to attack, he'll be playing at left back. If City want to attack, he'll be playing left wing. He's everywhere, and he's fit, he's in shape, he looks good. So I'm excited for what the future holds. I think Calvin Phillips just needs mentoring a little bit more, just to speak from other players that have been in a similar situation, and just be patient and trust the process.
Absolutely. Hey there, hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Another City fan here in the chat. And hey there to Rich. Thanks for coming in. So there was a question from Andrew. What do you think of the signing of Kovacic? On his day, he is amazing, but always injured.
Yeah, so Man City set to, apparently, but we've opened up talks with Mateo Kovacic from Chelsea. I think Chelsea having a bit of a fire sale. I know United been getting linked with Mason
Mount. Yeah, apparently we've agreed personal terms. I could just say.
I think we're somewhat similar with Mateo Kovacic, and I think a few City fans have been thinking to themselves, this now means that Ilkay Gundogan's going to leave because we want to bring in Kovacic. But what I'm hoping for here is Man City. We have some depth, but we don't have lots of proven experience depth in our team. And you get beyond the starting 14 or 15 players at City, and all of a sudden then we pick up 3-4 injuries. It looks very weak in our depth. And I think that might just be what City are looking towards. And with the likes of Gundogan and De Bruyne not getting any younger, I think bringing in Kovacic just helps ease that from City. I mean, Kovacic is a player that City have looked at in the past. We wanted him before he went to Chelsea. He's a player that's very versatile in midfield. He can go forward and attack. He can sit defensively. He can play in the 6 role, can play in the 8 role. Good with the ball. He's got proven Premier League experience. City aren't having to break the bank for him. If Man City and Pep Guardiola are happy to bring him in, who am I to argue against that decision?
Well, yeah, that's true. And he's, as you say, his experience, he's won trophies, and he could be as well that difference for next season when it comes to the Champions League as well, to sustain the Champions League, of course, if he was to win it or go on to win it that following season. I'll finish off with Zoe's question. Do you worry about Newcastle? Rumours they'll smash a few banks.
I am very happy for Newcastle. I think, because it's always felt for a City fan that we've always felt like outsiders looking in. We're looking at the likes of what United have achieved and what Liverpool have achieved, and I think that change is good for the Premier League. I think it helps keep it really nice and competitive. And it's up to everybody else to play catch up. So the more teams that you've got out there that are having more and more success, I think it's good to see. And I don't think Newcastle are the only team, I think, that's been playing some brilliant football. Brighton have been exceptional, absolutely exceptional. But Aston Villa have had a brilliant season. Brentford have done the double over us. So there's lots of really good teams out there, and I'm hoping with just a little bit more investment, you might just see the Premier League go even more competitive than what it has been. And I know the records show that City have won 5 out of the last 6, and it looks like it's not competitive. But you need to have a really good dig at what Man City have achieved and have a look at who was chasing. If it was City finishing 20, 25 points clear of everybody season after season, I'd say there's a gulfing difference. But it's not the case. Liverpool have risen their game. Arsenal have risen their game. United are starting to rise as well. We're seeing Newcastle who are going to try and do the same as well. I think it's good. I think it's good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And rather, I'm not happy with Dallow's new contract. You know me by now. I'm not a fan of Dallow. But thank you, Jason, for coming on. It's been
No
another
problem
great
at all.
preview with you, and it's great to stream with you as well.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I have to say, I'll say it out there in public. I work with a lot of people. I work with a lot of streamers. And Maisy, I think you're my favourite person to work with.
That really means a lot. Thank you so much, Jason, and it's always a pleasure. I'd love to get you on again as well next season too.
Fabulous.
So
More than
we'll
happy to do
definitely
so.
collab a lot more when it comes to next season. Would you like to shout out your socials and your score prediction?
Yeah, no problem. I'll start with my score prediction. I think it's going to be a close game. I think 0-0 half time. I think City will start to get motivated and grow and get through their gears into the second half. As I said before, we've not played for 3 weeks, this strongest 11 that we've got. I think it'll take a bit of time for them to click in. I think if we can keep things nice and tight, get it in 0-0 at half time, come out second half, and push forward, I think I can see it being a 1-0, but I'm going to go for 2-0. And with the goals for Erling Haaland, I think Ilkay Gundogan, what I was speaking about before, he pops in at the right place at the right time. I think this might just be a nice little domestic farewell, maybe for Ilkay Gundogan if he does end up leaving Manchester City. And in terms of my socials, you can go and check out my YouTube channel, which is JSGC. If you just type it in, it'll come up. I'm going to be doing a big watch along of the game in the build up. So I'm going live at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So I'm going to do all the build up to that, so all the team news and everything, and soaking what I'm hoping is going to be a very exciting game. Then we've got all the build up, of course, to the Champions League final next week. You can go and check me out on Twitter. The app to that's JSGC171. I'm not the most interesting of persons when I'm tweeting things out. I just tend to tweet about Manchester City and whatever's making me laugh. But if you want to go and check me out, you can. You can catch me on TikTok. I'm not sure what my at is on that, but I'm sure. I think it might be JSGC. If you type it in, I'll come up.
I've got it in the description anyway for you.
Thanks.
Don't worry about it.
You can go and check out my Instagram as well. Again, not too much happening on the gram at the moment, but I've got a trip coming up very soon to Iceland, so I'll be posting some pictures from that. So
Lovely.
That should be good. But yeah, that's it.
Lovely. Thank you as well for so much for coming in, Paul. Good to see you. And go and check out Jason's channel. Give him a subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be doing the review show tomorrow. I'm gonna go for 2-1 in extra time. But I wouldn't be surprised if you win. It's a 50-50 game at the end of the day. And then on Sunday, I'll be doing a player profile again. So last season, if people were watching my channel last year, I had different fans coming on from to discuss players on their loan spells at their clubs. This one we have got Mr. Doran, Nottingham Forest fan on for Dean Henderson. I will be having a Birmingham fan on next week as well. So I'll be getting all different fans just as I did last year. So then you'll be able to hear about the player that's out of their season of the club went as well. So go and check that out. Have a lovely weekend all. Enjoy the game. Take care. Bye bye.